I'm back. I just started a new stream in hopes that it sends out a new notification. So maybe you guys will come back and join me. Are you guys going to come back and join me? Hi. Hey, bestie. I don't know what's going on. Y'all, Mercury retrograde shit, it's already starting. It's already starting. I don't even know what's going on. I feel like my my things are not thinging. It's supposed to look like that. It's supposed to look like that. Oh, you can change the fonts on here? I'm just gonna do nonsense. I guess we're not gonna have as much time today because Mercury wants to be rude. They don't even want to show my brand colors on here like they usually do. I don't know what's going on. Around the corners. Well, good. I'm glad y'all came back. I'm sure more people will come back. The internet disconnected right as I was saying I shouldn't talk about something I shouldn't talk about. So I'm not going to talk about that. Just forget it. But I'm just going to pull cards. It's one of those days. Maybe I'll try again tomorrow. The vibes are weird. Are the vibes weird? The vibes are weird. And I have been slacking on my political education because honestly, I don't want to think about politics right now. It's hard for me. I get all excited about a new thing that I want to do and try to be consistent, and then at the end of the day, niggas got ADHD. So we're just gonna talk about whatever we talk about that day. And this week, just so y'all know, if the stream will cooperate with me, we have the full moon full moon lunar eclipse in Leo this Friday the 14th. Is that Friday the 14th that we have it? I'm pretty sure. We also have the sun will enter Pisces shortly after the eclipse. And then Mercury is going to station retrograde on Saturday. As you can see, Mercury is already acting up. And one thing that I have to say about this Pisces stellium and all of this nonsense is just that read into like the cues of other people's like emotional behaviors and things because people just might not have words. I don't know if y'all have been having this experience, but I've been having the experience of people, myself included, just not having the words that they need to express themselves or to explain how they're feeling or what's going on. So, with Mercury retrograde on top of a big Pisces stellium in Pisces, do your best. Okay, do your best. Let's see what these cards have to say. I already started shuffling. Oh, I forgot that I shuffled and already split. So we're just going to reshuffle while everyone's here. And if y'all, you know, if y'all are feeling away this week too, just feel away. There is no shame in having feelings. I don't know if my body fully believes that, but I'm trying to make myself believe that there is no shame in having feelings and in needing help in things, in needing support, or needing just people to know that you're sad and to comfort you. So, calling on my elevated and healed ancestors and spirits, thank you for this day. Thank you for waking me up out of those horrible dreams. And thank you for every day that we survive this political hellscape. We have a full moon lunar eclipse coming up in Leo, the first one of this series of Leo and Aquarius eclipses. And so I would just like to know, what is this lunar eclipse illuminating for us? How is it changing things for us? How should we navigate it? What's the situation? What's tea? Spirits. What's tea? And how do we get through it? How do we get through it? What can we expect? What precedent is it setting? Okay. Welcome back. I like the group of people who are in here right now. So thank you for being here. I appreciate you guys. Let's get it. We have Four of Wands. Not a bad start. We also have Judgment. I'm a big fan of this card. It's been on my mind lately. And we have Temperance. We've been getting this card a lot on this channel. So, very interesting. Okay, so those are our situation, obstacle, solutions vibe. And then our card on the bottom is the Hanged Man. You hate to see it, but sometimes you like to see it. I'm going to say that I feel kind of neutral about that. Do we like to see it? Do we hate to see it? Let's find out. Hi, Sydney. So if you're just joining, please like the video so that more of our friends can show up. We are discussing the Leo eclipse coming up this Friday and trying to figure out just what the fuck going on for real and what to do about it. Lots of majors in our spread today. We have the Hanged Man on bottom, as I just said, with the Four of Wands, Judgment, and Temperance. So before I get into the cards, I'm going to just talk a little bit about like what's been on my mind with Leo in general, because this eclipse, like I said, it would definitely snuck up on me. I think it's sneaking up on a lot of you as well. And it's just kind of like, oh, I have the wrong chart pulled over here. It's just kind of like, let me Google a word. I meant to do this beforehand and I forgot, but let me Google a word real quick. I don't want the AI overview. Take me to Merriam-Webster. Okay, so let's talk about a Leo word, the Leo wound of humiliation. I know we've talked about this dozens of times just in my astrological corner and in sidereal corner in general. But humiliation, this is to reduce someone or something, but usually someone, a person, to a lower position in one's own eyes or to others' eyes. And then there's also to make someone ashamed or embarrassed. So, Leo's wound of humiliation, we've mentioned before, has to do with the fact that, like, sometimes you're just a little bit too visible. And whether you want to be visible or not, you are. People can see you, they're looking at you, they have expectations and projections and assumptions that they're making about you just for the simple fact that they can see you. And whenever someone is trying to impose their power or authority or some kind of domination or intimidation over somebody, humiliation is one way to do that. Like we said, to reduce someone to a lower position, it comes from the word like humiliate or humility, of just being lower, trying to put you below them and to make you feel ashamed or embarrassed about something that is just you. Yes, overexposed is also a good word for that. Overexposed is also a good word. So it's just like, with this eclipse coming up, I think many people are feeling this experience of being beneath others or being made to feel like they should be beneath others. I don't have to go through all of the identities that are experiencing that. You already know. So, with a Leo eclipse coming up, there is the wound of humiliation that maybe feels a little bit more present than usual. But there's also the gift, and yes, I'm borrowing wounds and gifts language today. And there's also the gift of dignity and self respect. It's not feeling ashamed of who you are, but in fact, feeling a sense of pride and, like we said, self respect and feeling a sense of, not this overestimation that's like arrogance and hubris, right? Because that's all kind of fake putting up a front, but it is just feeling a strong sense of self and self-esteem, regardless of what other people think or what they have to say about you, and not allowing yourself to be influenced by other people's perception of you, but more so leading with the vision that you have of yourself and for yourself. I think there are a lot of things going on with this Leo eclipse, considering, the nodes haven't switched over. There's a bunch of Pisces stuff going on. We still have Jupiter in Taurus. But the sky is pretty specific in terms of it just being Leo, Aquarius, Pisces, and Taurus in the sky right now. So, what we were talking about a little bit last week or the week before is this idea of like wanting to feel like other people also believe things and see things the way that you see them. And I would imagine at a Leo eclipse, there's a desire to want to be seen and for other people to have a sense of approval and acceptance around you and your identity and the dreams and ambitions that you have for yourself and stuff like that. And so if people don't feel that way, or the state wants to continue to humiliate you or whatever it is, um that feels like shit. And then you create narratives about yourself based on those projections, and you create narratives about other people or what's possible for you or where things are headed that can be anxiety inducing. There's a lot of uncertainty around that. There's a lot of fear and just stress and demoralizing and all of these things that can just make it feel like, why bother? And at the same time, it makes it easier to see the people who do care about you and people who are on your side and people who do want the best for you. So, um, people who do see you in a way that is authentic and in alignment with how you see yourself and who want to support that. So those are just some like general overview, basic Leo themes. But what does this Leo eclipse look like during this time period? Let's look to these cards. So the Hanged Man as our context. This card is about a few different things. So quite literally being suspended upside down in midair, but the image overall doesn't give like despair and like and sadness and hopelessness and all this kind of stuff. It's kind of meditative. It's kind of just like, if you I don't know if you can see his face, but he's really just kind of neutral and upside down, but the overall landscape, like the beautiful sunset, the bird perched on his leg, the flowers growing on the trees, the water shining, it's a clear day in the sky, no clouds. Like, it's not necessarily a negative card or a negative position to be in. And I think something the Hanged Man does that is really underrated is it does offer perspective. It's both like the contemplation that comes with stillness and just like waiting and seeing, but it's also like introspective in the way of really getting clear on your own perspective and then getting a new perspective because you're literally upside down and having to observe what's going on within you or around you from a different perspective than usual. So, Hanged Man, not the worst thing to see in this spread, I think. I think there is an opportunity to see things differently, and in this case, if we really go with the introspective aspect of Leo and of this card, it's seeing yourself from a different perspective maybe, right? So, that immediately says to me with all of the astrology of the moment, that says something to me about, dang, I lost my train of thought already. What was I about to say? Oh, the narratives that you say about yourself, the stories that you tell about yourself and your experiences, and the meanings that you give to yourself and your experiences, and also like your plans, not your plans, the meanings that you give to your setbacks and what that says about you. Adarius says, I was going to say for me, it's been a card to just take a break, like no planning, acting, or immediately moving, just sit for a second and process. I would agree. I would agree. It can also just be to pause and not do anything because you literally can't. I mean, it's literally your hands being tied, but it's not the worst thing in the world that your hands are tied. It just kind of is like, this is all you can do right now is just hang out here. Quite literally, hang out here. And I think because his eyes are closed, that's why I bring up introspection. Cool. So our first card, this is going to be in the position of just the situation that we're in right now. What's going on? Four of Wands. So this is an interesting card to see in this spread. Four of Wands. This is a cute card. Also, you see this little family of bunnies, and they're like hanging out in this kind of whatever this little like stick situation is to represent the Four of Wands. And fours are also something about like contentment or just they can be contentment or complacent, but they're just kind of like this is before you get into all of the conflict and sometimes struggle or whatever it is that comes up, disruptions that come up with fives. Four of Wands, I know this is previously a card of like celebration feels too far because that's more Six of Wands vibes. But yeah, I think it's just like complacent. You know, it's just like chilling. Things are fine. It's no big deal. Um, not quite satisfaction either. Hmm. But then you have judgment in the next position that's talking about the obstacles. And judgment I think about as like kind of a kind of between I was going to say kind of between Saturn and Jupiter, but I don't even want to say that actually. What I really want to say is you know how whenever you are having an experience for the first time and you're moving through it and you just like literally don't know what's going on, what to expect, how to navigate the situation. So you just do your best in the situation with what you know at the time. And then as time goes on and you get more perspective, that word again, from the original situation, it allows you to form a new opinion about it. It allows for more like insight into what was actually going on, or you just like get more information and insight with time and space and distance. And so judgment to me is it's also kind of reflective in like, man, if I would have known at the time that this situation was going to have these certain outcomes or that it was going to lead to a certain I don't know, lead to some kind of consequence or lead to some kind of whatever happens afterwards, I would have navigated that situation differently with the information that I have now. And then I think even just like leaning into the literal word judgment, like sometimes there is the judgment or the shaming that you have of how you handled something in the past and feeling like you need to atone for it in the present day. Or I don't know, I might be projecting a little bit because this is like kind of reading my tea right now. But having that in the obstacle position, yeah, it does kind of give like having perspective in the context of the hangman, having the perspective on a situation that you have now and how that changes your outlook on yourself in the process. Interesting with Four of Wands in the front position. I'll come back to that. And then Temperance as the solution card. So the one on the end. And we've seen Temperance a number of times. Temperance just talking about like balance and harmony and the ability to make something out of nothing or make something out of ingredients or contradictions or things that just don't necessarily go together. Things that are maybe complementary, but yeah, even contradictory. You know, something that has come up since doing a million and one readings lately. Shout out to y'all for booking me. I'm almost out of spots. So if you want to get a spot in my books before I close them, you should. I probably have like one or two left. I don't know, but um something that's been coming up is this idea of sharpening sharpening contradictions. Shout out to Nikki for that. And me and Jim also had a really nice discussion the other day. And I I remember us saying that our internal contradictions in a lot of ways are like reaching these breaking points during this time. And a lot of those contradictions I think are rooted in some kind of a denial that's really meant to avoid grief. Right? So if and this kind of feels judgment card related too. Maybe that's why the card's been on my mind lately, but it's like being in denial about something for so long and just like refusing to accept the truth or the reality of something, of a situation or something that you're dealing with, is avoiding grief sometimes. Like, it is the whole reason you would be in denial, as denial being like a Saturn theme um experience, is because there's probably a painful realization on the other side of it, and the painful realization is often rooted in like the truth or reality of the situation that you like can't, sometimes that you are powerless against. You know, there's a lack of control or a lack of influence even, and that's why denial is a little bit easier to reckon with. So, um the contradictions that arise out of denial are like wanting to believe something is true about yourself or about a situation because it's, I don't know, more beneficial emotionally for you to do that, even if materially or circumstantially or whatever it's not. And I think the like as far as like those contradictions sharpening within us, it's kind of a self-protective position to be in. Very guarded and not open to new possibilities or new perspectives or new possible outcomes. It's just like very like closed in on itself. And so there's an opening, I guess, that happens when you allow for multiple things to be true at once. There's a softening that happens when you allow multiple things to be true at once. And I think if we're talking about shame really being at the heart of this, because it's a Leo eclipse and because there's a bunch of Jupiter ruled planets being ruled by Jupiter and Taurus, um, self respect and dignity in this moment looks like, I don't know, being open to, I was going to say being open to your shadow. This feels so generic. So one thing about me is if I'm like trying to read cards or if I'm talking about astrology and I notice myself saying the same themes over and over and over again, I start to get skeptical because I'm like, surely there's more. Surely there's something I'm missing. Surely there's like something else. But sometimes it's not. And it's especially like when the sky is just concentrated energy building up to this point of massively of like a critical mass. It's like it's that's literally what it is. There's nothing new to talk about. There's nothing new to add. Stop trying to be different. So I don't know. I had to get that out of my head because that's what's coming up, and it's like stifling my own intuition, and maybe that's part of all of this, which is why I just want to say it out loud. It's probably part of this process. So I don't know. We're here with you. We're with you here in the comments, Winter. Thank you. Um, yeah. I don't know. Four of Wands. Hold on one second. Four of Wands is throwing me off a little bit. I'm also open to your interpretations. This can be a group project if you'd like. But I mean, I guess yeah, same things. It's belonging was another word that came up. Belonging and support, stability, community, home, celebration. So, is there like a call in this spread to like find a way to be in celebration of who you are, even though we're under attack? Because, you know, in the long run, like it may not make sense right now. I think that's very, because another thing about this spread is like you have Judgment and the Hangman, they're like right next to each other. And both of these are speaking to something about like not knowing what something is in the moment, but then as time goes on, it looks different in retrospect or in hindsight. But you kind of have to live through the experience to get to the point of awareness and of understanding. So I guess then with that in mind, this is saying something about there being a lot of things that don't really make sense right now. There's definitely attack on um our sense of reality and our sense of who we are and what's right and what's wrong and what's real, and a bunch of chaos that's happening that we don't know what the outcome is going to be. We have a lot of like speculation about what it's going to be, who we're going to be as these things are unfolding, and how we're going to move through it. And we just kind of don't know. And there's some permission in this spread that's like you're just not going to know until later. But that doesn't mean that you can't still learn as you go. And if the situation is 4 of wands, and I don't read reversals, so, if the situation is just 4 of wands, like finding ways to celebrate, finding wa finding ways to really hold on to your sense of dignity and self-respect and pride, you know, and self-regard, like holding on to those things as, I was gonna say metrics of truth, I don't really know what that means, but holding on to those things as maybe guides, or holding on to those things as evidence that you can see yourself differently than you've seen yourself in the past, because you have changed and things are different. And you kind of need to step into your self-determined identity that we've been working on for the past 3 years with Saturn and Aquarius. You kind of like have to step into your self-determined identity and that version of yourself, even if other people don't validate or accept it or don't believe that it's real. Like, you kind of have to lean into that, even though you don't know where it's leading you or what the outcome is going to be. But you'll be glad. And I think it's somewhat speaking to the future in terms of like you're not going to know who you are and what this is all about until later. But I think there's also, like, right now, back to the 4 of wands, because the 4 of wands feels very like present. It's speaking to this present moment, even though, like, there's a lot of time traveling. There's a lot of things coming up for me now. There's like a lot of time traveling in this spread. And by time traveling, I mean existing in the past, present, and future all at once. Because there is like reflecting on the last 5 or 6 years since the last Saturn and immutable sign transit, which would have been Saturn in Sagittarius. And I think Saturn in Pisces has a similar feeling to Saturn in Sagittarius, and it's the square from that transit that I think for a lot of us kind of established a lot of the political and moral and whatever other like values and beliefs that we have that are guiding us today. And a lot of the disruptions that happened, from the pandemic, and a lot of the economic disturbances, and a lot of the social issues, and just like all of these things that we've experienced over the last several years have shaped us into new people that I think we can be proud of, that I do think serve a purpose moving forward. And we just haven't fully embraced it yet, or we just haven't fully realized it yet, because there's like a material circumstance or something that hasn't fully begun to like materialize that version of yourself. Am I making sense? I'm kind of I'm thinking about myself, because usually the person who's pulling cards, it'd be for you. So maybe that's the point of this spread for me, and just speaking about it from my personal perspective, instead of trying to like generalize it too much, and then maybe you guys relate to it. I don't know. But I think, and what I was gonna say before the live cut me off in general, was that I'm having a hard time right now because, trans people are under attack, and my choice, my decision to not to be trans, but to be myself has put me in even more danger than I was already in. And I genuinely, truly have no regrets about being myself because it's inevitable. It was going to happen eventually. And I'm sure many of you can relate to this too. Like, you were going to be who you are at some point, especially the more that you grow and become an adult and have life experiences. And like, there's nothing wrong with you as you are, or, there's nothing wrong with being yourself. But there's psychological and spiritual warfare going on that wants to make you hate yourself and makes you want to regret trying to have any kind of autonomy or self-determination or to go against what's considered normal. Like, there's literally an attack on that. Every single day we have to hear about there being an attack on people just trying to be themselves, trying to liberate themselves in some capacity. And so all of the work that we've done, when I say through like Saturn and Aquarius, of self-determination, like literally trying to be ourselves beyond just like what's been expected of us, what's been projected onto us. That was hard work. And I think the Aquarius piece of it, since we're wrapping up this transit, even though we're shifting into Leo and Aquarius eclipses now, is that the Saturn piece of it is it not fully feeling like those things have been actualized because there's maybe not community or people around to actually like validate that, to actually like for it to actually have impact, I think is what I'm trying to say from Leo perspective, for it to actually have impact and influence over the world around us. I mean, we just spent all of this work self-determining just to come back to a world that is viciously right wing and viciously like fascistic, trying to push everybody back into their trying to erase everybody basically. And so I think there's also something to be said for the contradiction of like fascism and this psychological and spiritual warfare is the evidence that people have been self-actualizing and becoming more authentic. Because otherwise, what would they be pushing back on? Like there'd be nothing to push back on if everybody was already assimilating and just doing and just conforming to the state. There'd be nothing to push back on. There'd be nothing for right wingers to bitch about ad nauseum. Like, it would just be every day would be gray. But because we've done so much work to progress, now we're experiencing the pushback, and that is the evidence of the change, I guess. So maybe that's what this is talking about. It's feeling like defeat constantly because these people are in power now and because some people did vote for them. But I think we shouldn't forget that he did cheat. That man did cheat. He does play dirty. He doesn't play by the rules. Like, nothing that's happening right now is happening because it's fair and just. Everything that's happening right now is being stolen from us and weaponized against us. So I think it's on us to not internalize that and to, again, really stay firm in who we are and what we want for ourselves as individuals and as a society, instead of just rolling over and assuming defeat, falling into like submission in a way. Like, we really have to trust that we have made a lot of the progress that we think we've made. There's just not a clear material representation of that change that's in power right now. The material representation of that change is the however many millions of people who didn't vote in the election because they didn't want to vote for genocide and they didn't want to vote for Trump, right? The millions of people who voted third party because even though they don't necessarily think that third party was going to win, they wanted to show that like they would be interested in somebody else representing them than the people who exist. Hey, Kratos. So yeah, I think there's a call for a type of reflection that is acknowledging the reality that we have changed and that things are changing, and that a lot of the ways that some other people are responding is because they are meeting their own contradictions and dissonance and denial in real time and not really sure where to put that energy. So they project it onto people who have been doing the work or have been trying to be themselves or have been trying to live in their convictions and in their authenticity. And they're mad at that because they haven't managed a way to do that yet in a way that's actually like congruent with reality, maybe. That could be my own Leo hubris speaking, but sometimes you got to have some of that, you know. I really think that um going back to this whole humiliation thing, people who want to see you be small and shrink hate it whenever you have any sense of like big upping yourself, tooting your own horn, like thinking highly of yourself and feeling good about yourself. Like they hate that shit. And they especially hate whenever you exaggerate it. They hate whenever you just like fully do have like a big ego and sense of like hubris about yourself. That's, I'm not trying to say that hubris, and arrogance are good things, but I think if you're a group or an identity that's under attack, then yeah, they really fucking hate that shit. Like they're trying to kind of beat it out of you to make you feel small. So, however you need to embrace your wins and like embrace your positive attributes and like let those take up space in your life and in your relationships and at work and in any space where you feel like you do feel celebrated and you do feel like you contribute and you have influence in a way that you feel is an accurate reflection of who you are, to like really let that light shine bright and to trust that like even if it's not making an impact right now in a way that's obvious to you, that it is making an impact, and we just may not see the rest of where all of this is headed, until the end of the eclipse cycle. This is the beginning of the Leo and Aquarius eclipse cycle. And I really do think these eclipses shift a lot for us because we've reached the point now where they're pushing back on us, so we're going to have to push back on them. I think actually this card is like kind of representing almost like a false sense of accomplishment that we had like through the Obama era, where everybody was super libbed up and just really thought that, getting gay marriage legalized and like even like Joe Biden beating Trump this last time to keep from having two Trump presidencies, like people thought that those were wins, and thought that like, oh, we finally defeated, republicanism in this way. We finally defeated like far right ideology, all this stuff. And it's like, we got complacent, I think. And we thought that that was like all we needed to do for things to be okay. And that, Kamala was a shoo-in for Kamala to win because who would vote for Trump again? And it's like, babe, we still have work to do. Like, we haven't done all of it. But I don't think didn't think that we knew that at the time. So now we're in a position where we're having to realize, okay, yes, we have made a lot of progress in these certain specific contexts, but we have not progressed as far as we need to. And I think the eclipses are doing that aspect of the work for us, reminding us that like, hey, this is not done. Like, one, we don't have to admit defeat. And two, our work is not done. We're doing better than we think we are. And there's still more to go. Yeah, good enough. So interesting spread. What do you guys think? I've got a few minutes left. I can see what y'all said here in the chat because I didn't see too much. Sometimes I am still in the midst of the lesson. Yes, it's not going to be different until you're done. Exactly. Drop the bone. Seeing yourself, what's possible for yourself rather than what you previously assumed, definitely that. Yeah, Saturn was in Sagittarius, in 2017. It was January 2017 to January 2020 for Saturn in Sagittarius. The shaming coming from liberals too, like they do this every time the Democrats lose. Yeah. Yeah, the liberals will blame everybody except for themselves. For themselves and their shitty platform for why they lose and can't win another election at the moment. Um Yeah, more and more people are speaking about him cheating. He's admitted himself several times that he cheated. And everyone's just kind of like, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, he's literally saying it. And it's that Pisces shit, if it's not what it looks like thing that people are like not believing him literally saying the truth. Y'all are still over here blaming Jill Stein voters and people who didn't vote whenever the man is saying he cheated. Like his numbers aren't even real. And it's not the people who showed up the day of to vote numbers that he cheated on. It was the early voters that he manipulated that information, that those voting numbers, if I understood correctly. So people aren't even like, we're too busy blaming ourselves to look at what's literally going on. Maybe that's some of that in this spread as well. Like, hey, stop it, internalizing that shit. Um, any self-esteem, even when you fall, mess up, or are humiliated, they cannot comprehend. Exactly. It always is. I'm appreciating this convo so much. I appreciate the complacency point because the fuel running the country is still the same, even though they changed the car. Exactly that. That's another big thing. I feel like the more that we're trying to like understand what Trump and them are doing is like missing the overall point that even if it wasn't Trump, there would still be things going on that disenfranchise us because the problem is not the president. The problem is the entirety of the system. So anybody who runs it is going to be contributing to the system, even if they make our everyday lives a little bit less disastrous. Like we're still dealing with the consequences of capitalism and imperialism. And if we aren't directly dealing with it, other parts of the world are dealing with it, which is only like escalating tensions in ways that we can't necessarily see. And I also think there's a lot of that happening too with this Pisces stuff of just like all of the things that we don't understand are creating problems that we can't see just yet and we won't be able to see until later. And so it's important that we continue to like push back, and we continue to actually like place the blame on the people it actually needs to be on instead of on each other, you know. Maxine Waters is the only Democrat I've seen say he's cheated. That's the other weird thing too. Like, why are more of them not saying that? Again, what's not being said being like the quote of this whole Pisces shit as well. Like, um, there's just so much weird stuff going on. So yeah, moral of the story. Moral of the story really being that this is not a moment for certainty, obviously. This is not a moment for certainty. This is not a moment to necessarily like um take more action, but there's still more work to be done internally, and like stillness is what allows that work to start. Stillness is what allows you to feel the discomfort enough of like being suspended in midair until you like fully lean into whatever version of yourself is going to get us through the revolution. Basically. And so Four of Wands in the situation position kind of representing both celebrating the achievements and the wins that we have had, especially as individuals, especially as like our personal self-growth, but also representing the complacency of society at large in thinking that we were further along than we actually were and that that was good enough. Judgment is the realization that, again, on the one hand, we have changed a lot over the last handful of years, but it just hasn't materialized just yet. So we're still in the learning and the understanding of who we are and where this is all going. And we have enough hindsight or enough retrospection to see where we've gone wrong and like where we may not have been in alignment as much as we would have liked to be, and maybe feeling some judgment or shame or I don't know, humiliation around that. And then temperance in the future position, or rather in the solution position, just saying something about like holding all of these contradictions at once and still finding ways to move forward when the time comes. Again, because we're in the hangman position. I think a lot of this is just sitting and holding and reckoning with all of the contradictions of this moment. And instead of going into the place of self deprecation or shaming and blaming other people or full on like indoctrination and zealotry, right? It's like pause, like let me actually get a sense of what's going on right now and really root myself in the present moment instead of trying to exist too far in the future or too far in the past. So those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think about this reading. Thank you so much for sticking with me through my technical difficulties in the beginning. Like I said, Mercury retrograde is coming this Saturday. So all week, if you're experiencing any kind of miscommunications or technological issues and disruptions and things like that, it's about that time. So slow down, choose your words carefully. Check, recheck, and check again. And just be prepared for a lot of repair as well. Not just this week, but in the coming weeks as Mercury is actually retrograding. Put yourself in a position where you can repair and be prepared to make repairs, whether that is with your literal material items or within your relationships. And good luck. We got this eclipse, then we got another week, and then we got our big Pisces eclipse coming up. So next week live will probably be on Sunday morning because Emily is coming to visit me. So I won't be available on Monday morning. But yeah, let's do Sunday at noon. Why not? And if anything changes, I'll let y'all know. And we can chat and just see what happened. So if you haven't liked the video already, please like the video, subscribe to my channel. And I will see you all next Sunday at noon. Peace and blessings. Bye. I gotta fade my music in.